So let's start. Let me start with the first question. So, Josh, can you introduce yourself briefly and DVRT as well to the Korean people?
Sure. My name is Josh Hankin. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I've been in the field for almost 30 years now, which tells you a little bit how old I am. I do have a degree in exercise science in the university setting. I've interned in the university also in strength conditioning programs as well as post-rehabilitation. I've basically been teaching courses and continuing education in the field for the last 15 years. I ran my own gym for over a decade, so I get both the practical experience of being a professional and also being an educator. I started DVRT, which stands for Dynamic Variable Resistance Training, back around 2004. And basically, we've grown it organically since then to the last 20 years and having it all over the world. So it's been a great blessing to have that opportunity to share the education of better movement and better training to lots of different fitness professionals, a lot of different audiences, in a lot of different countries.
Yeah. So in short, you are a legend in this field, right?
In short, I'm old. I've been around a long time, but I enjoy working with people. I love helping people get better results with their clients, no matter if it's sports performance, post-rehabilitation, or general fitness.
Well, age comes with the experience. So
exactly. There's a lot of wisdom, right? Wisdom.
Yeah. And
no hair, but wisdom.
No problem at all here. And can you explain a little bit about how DVRT is different from other training platforms or systems?
Sure. DVRT wasn't something I thought about developing. It came about very organically. Since I was a child, I was diagnosed with a degenerative spinal disease. So for most of my life, it was very difficult for me to do things, even though I did end up playing basketball at the university setting and so forth and being a competitive athlete in many realms. I always had to do things differently because I just couldn't do what everyone else did because my spine was a limiting factor in many different ways. Mm-hmm. So over the years, I just was always interested in, different thought processes and different solutions. And in the late 90s, functional training started becoming a thing in the fitness industry. I was very intrigued by this idea of, instead of thinking about individual muscles, thinking about how the body actually is designed to function during movement. So that was sort of the foundation. And then in 2002, I went to my first kettlebell course and I met Pavel Zatulin, who was known for bringing kettlebells back into the industry. Became, quite good friends with Pavel at the time. And he encouraged me to read old time strength training magazines and books and so forth. And through that, I started trying to piece together commonalities because obviously in the 1800s and the early 1900s, there wasn't the internet. People couldn't communicate very easily. And so I was looking for those common strands. And one thing that consistently intrigued me was this idea of odd object training. And so odd objects, like they were using really crazy things, but the one thing that stood out as a very practical means, and they always said was the most challenging, was a sandbag. And so I was intrigued by that idea. And mostly they were using terminology that we would understand today. They didn't use exact words, but they would say things like stabilizer strength, core strength, those type of ideas that would enhance the way these, athletes would perform. And so I started fooling around with the ideas myself. There wasn't really a book or a course in sandbag training for fitness or, performance or physical therapy. So, I did the whole homemade sandbag thing, and that was dirty, that was messy, but it was intriguing in how challenging it was when everything wasn't perfectly set up for me. Like in most things in weight training, everything is perfectly balanced, everything moves right with your body and so forth. And this was an implement that was what some of my colleagues have called non-cooperative, and I think that's a good term for it. So you had to be more precise with your movement. You had to be more thoughtful about your movement. And I wanted to make the system based upon what I had known about from functional training about how human movement is created. So it wasn't just, here's a squat, this is just a unique squat. It was, hey, this is how we build better hip mobility, core stability so that you can squat more effectively. This is how we can make more multi-pointer training. So when you squat, that squat will translate to everyday life performance at a higher degree.
So can we go a little deeper into each of the courses? So you guys have DVRT restoration, level 1 and level 2. So, briefly, how are they different?
So restorations are basically our corrective exercise program. And even if you've done programs like FMS or other corrective exercise programs, it is a very unique program. You'll see some similar concepts shared because good science is good science. So, we know the FMS guys pretty darn well and definitely admire the work that they do. But we have a different take on some of the ways we sort of address some of the solutions. And we've done some collaborative work in the past So that's really our corrective exercise. We show you how the tool can act as another coach to help you provide better feedback to the client to understand how to move more effectively and efficiently. So it speeds up the process and we can improve stability, mobility, and functional movement. Level 1 is sort of our strength and foundations, movement foundations course. So you're going to learn how do we, what are the 7 movement patterns that we're going to cover? Why are they important? And then how do we progress them in a way other than just adding more weight or doing more reps or things like that? We're going to sophisticate the way you think about building a movement system. And that's going to be our basis. So you're going to get an idea of how to build sort of strength and movement at the same time, because sometimes people think they're different, but they should be. And then a level 2 is where we go more advanced. Obviously, it's a level 2 course, so we go a lot more multi-planar. We get into concepts of rotation. We get into things that sort of get missed by most fitness programs, even strength conditioning programs, because most people get stuck in just lifts and exercises. And they forget that movement gets to much higher levels. So people get to see where they can go with their strength training at a level they probably never saw before, and they get very excited about that because it really opens up the playbook to accomplish so much more.
Okay. So they definitely are different from each other, and I guess they have a unique features in it. So who do you recommend to take these courses?
Really, we've had such a diverse group of people take the courses over the last 20 years. We've had physical therapists, chiropractors, fitness professionals, strength coaches, people in the U.S. military, basically anyone that wants to achieve better movement and performance and well-being. So, we always start with a baseline, even if we have an eclectic group. If we have someone who's a medical professional and someone who's just a rather new fitness person, they can still get a lot out of the program, because we're going to talk about how we make science very practical and applicable and easy to understand. And most people are very surprised. They don't know a lot of the science of movement. And even if you have a background, we're going to give you a whole new spin to it. So we're going to make the language a lot easier to understand and a lot easier to apply. So it really doesn't matter what your background is, as long as you're wanting to accelerate the results that you get with different people, whether it's post-rehabilitation, general fitness, weight loss, or strength and performance.
And do you recommend them to take from restoration to level 1 and level 2, or can they start from level 1 and level 2 and come back to restoration? I mean,
sure. That's just yeah, absolutely. That's just depending upon your goals. Most people find that they can't go wrong going either direction. If they start with restoration, it makes them very sensible linear progression. It's like going through school, right? It makes you go right into the grades, if you will. And it makes a lot of sense that one carries right into the other. If you start with level 1 and go to level 2 because you feel like that's more what attracts you to some of the exercises and some of the ideas, most people end up going back to restoration because they find it only enhances what they do in level 1 and level 2. So most people end up taking all 3 courses at one point or another.
Okay. But definitely level 1 and level 2 are more strength and conditioning focused, and restoration is more corrective.
It is. I mean, and we call it restoration because what they'll find is that through restoration, their strength training gets much better, and they're able to lift more intelligently. And I always say, there's a famous saying: the best ability is availability. So if you're always hurting, your strength training is going to suffer, your performance training is going to suffer. So if we can make people feel and move well right off the bat, everything's going to be much easier to teach in the long run.
Okay. So, I mean, how DVRT is doing globally? I mean, you've been out here for about 20 years, you said. So, how many countries are you in? How many certified are there? Things like that.
I've personally taught in over 13 countries. So that's been a great thrill of mine. We have instructors all over the globe, and we probably have people that do our program. I think we counted one time, it was well over 60 countries that have actually invested in DVRT. Wow. Some that I didn't even know existed. And so it's very strong. And I think what's really great is to see how people start to not just understand the ultimate sandbag, but they understand a better system of movement and strength training. And so they can carry that over to other things they're doing as well. This won't just apply to the ultimate sandbag itself. If you're into kettlebells, if you're into barbell training, if you're into other types of training, it will enhance everything you do from the principles and the concepts that we place forth. So everyone gets excited because you'll integrate this in what you're doing, and it'll make everything you already love that much better.
So to all kinds of odd objects.
All objects. We even have yoga people that love yoga, employees, people that love doing this. So it's great to see that carries over to so many different types of people.
So finally, my question is, so you were here, the last time you were here was 2016 or 20?
Yeah, we were just thinking
7
about
years
that. I
ago.
think it was 2016 is right. Yeah.
So it's been a while. So how do you feel about that? And do you have any expectation? Because you're coming in March next year. So do you have any expectation?
Well, I always love coming to South Korea. I've been a few times because my experience has been the fitness professionals I've worked with are always very attentive. They're always very determined. They always want to work hard, which is not always the same in the States. So I always admire that the fitness pros come with such a desire to get better. They want to learn and they work very hard in doing so, and they pay attention to those little details. So I'm very excited to come back and work with those professionals and new professionals because, I mean, the atmosphere has always been very rewarding to me because, to me, the everything is about the education. And so if people walk away with a better understanding, I don't care how many new exercises they have, but they understand the whys, and they're going to have the empowerment to create many different exercises, many different programs.
So we're all excited to have you here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, it was a pleasure seeing you both.